Black has had an interesting journey in this whole Zenkai era. Main thing being is that when the Zenkai sets were first released, Black got a pretty short end of the stick as far as Z battle card. It did get a good archetype, not quite as strong as the other ones that were out there, so I didn't really see a lot of play. Though I did have a lot of fun updating my set 12 Shroom and Salsa list, we still didn't have like a tier 1 Black archetype. That kind of changes now because there's a lot of hope for Evil Saiyan, also known as Cumber. So I'm going to go over my list. I'm going to go over the N archetype cards, the Z battle cards, all that good stuff. So this deck profile is going to take a while. I will have a list down in the link. I'm pretty close to finishing my 10 rounds. So this list is probably not going to change a lot from now, but I will give you like a little short video on the 10 round tournament report for the deck. Evil Saiyan, Prison Planet, what do they do? So Evil Saiyan, when you play him in a leader area, gives you the Prison Planet. This has like minor upside as far as like deck consistency. This guy, when he swings, draws you a card, and he has 2 awakening conditions. First one is that you get to awaken if you have a Black Fu Z battle card in play and at least 2 energy. That's pretty easy to come by because the Z battle card they gave you was super cheap, super easy to make. The other one is if you're at 4 or less life. On the backside, he swings, draws a card, and then he has an activate main once per turn where you get to give a battle card that you own but that is in your opponent's battle area servant. There's a bunch of cards in his archetype that has the skill to be given to your opponent, so giving a servant is pretty interesting. But the reason why it works is because of the field card. See, typically if you give a card servant, you're giving it plus 10k power. So you have to worry about them taking a innocuous battle card and be able to swing with it, even if they don't have the ability to restand with it. But the field allows you to overlord the cards on your opponent's side of the field as long as you're using a food to overlord. Not only does the Z battle card exist, there's 2 other food cards, one that I have access to, the other one I don't, but I'll make you aware of it, that will allow you to overlord these cards that you're giving servant to. Not only do you have the ability to give servants to your own cards that you give them, there's cards within the deck that also give servant to your opponent's battle cards, and then your overlord becomes a form of removal that also draws you cards. So we're going to start with the Z deck since it's pretty important. So your awakening condition, the primary one, is going to be done by the Fu Z battle card. As you see, he's a 1 energy, 1 Z energy, so super easy to make. He has deflect and barriers, so there's nothing that's going to interact with him as far as coming into play. When you play him, you Z-stack the Cumber Z battle card underneath him, which we'll get into. And then he has Overlord Limit 1. So this was kind of a smart from a balance standpoint because it prevents you from like playing a bunch of these and just stacking them up on the table, going Overlord, Overlord, Overlord. But making a limit 1, you can only benefit from having 1 on the table. Then you have the activate main to be able to pay black. This is not once per turn, that's important. To be able to play the Cumber Z battle card from underneath your Fu. The reason why it's important is because if you have the excess energy on the turn and you think they might have the focus breakthrough or the absolute release ball or the Beer's ball or whatever, you could pay black and say, hey, do you have any response? If they do respond with one of those cards, you could just not play it, pay black again and play it. So just keep that in mind. Don't pay black and put the card out and then play it into your opponent's card without giving them a proper opportunity to respond. I think I did a short on making sure that you don't make the decision for your opponent. So we actually played 2 of both of these cards, but the main thing about the Cumber is that the Cumber on play and on attack could give a 4 or less battle card servant. This is really good when you're going into your red matchups like Red Sen. You get through a turn where you were able to deal with a dread. You could then swing, like play this guy, lock down a dread, swing, lock down one of the other 15Ks, and then you could overlord, a card, get it out the way, and do other things. Unlike the Fu though, this has 0 protection, so it's gonna die right after you do that. Just keep that in mind. Then we have the Boo and the surmounting, which we all kind of know about, and that leads us to the Z leader. The Z leader is a whole discussion on his own. So this guy is a card that you actually want to aim towards getting to. I wouldn't necessarily tank my life hard, but once you get here, you could do some pretty interesting things. So the first thing is that he's a 20k. That makes it easier for you to defend your life total. He comes out when you're at 3 or less life for a single energy and 2 Z energy, and then on swing he draws a card and then gives one of your opponent's battle cards servant. So he could lock down an annoying boss monster that you don't want to deal with. He could deal with cards that you normally couldn't remove. Like, for instance, one of my opponents made a Zamasu, Deity's Wrath. They swung on me that one time. I lost the card, but after that, I was able to just swing, lock down the Zamasu. Swing, lock down the Zamasu. And at that point, they never got another card from me as I just built my hand all the way back up again. The other thing is that he has an activate battle once per turn. This is usable on either player's turn, where you are allowed to combo with up to 2 cards with Servant in your opponent's battle area. Such great removal. So you can only Overlord so many times, especially if you don't have the promo Fu. So if you have a bunch of other cards that you gave Servant to after you play a boss monster, you have to have some way to be able to remove them in a more permanent way than just keeping them locked down. So the way you do that is, of course, be in combat, combo with those 2. It does require him to be in combat, so if they negate the attack, you don't get to do it on offense, but you sure enough get to do it on defense, because all these abilities that give Servant to an opponent's card is until the end of your opponent's next turn. So even if they play a card that doesn't have Servant and come at you, you could use their cards to combo as an activate battle and get yourself out of an attack. So now that we got the Z deck dealt with, we're now going to talk about the main deck. And it's going to be broken down into an archetype cards and then the engine I'm playing to help bolster the deck. So in archetype, we have 8 copies of Draw 2s. So why do I call them this? For 0 energy, you are able to give these cards to your opponent and gain a card, and then using the backside of your leader, you would give them Servant and use your food to Overlord them. In the case of Mai, you give it to your opponent and you draw a card. And in the case of Trunks, you give it to your opponent and you top deck 5 for 6 or less Black Saiyan or a Mai. And the Black Saiyan you get cannot be another copy of him, or else it will be pretty busted. Both of those effects are limit 1, so you're not able to just spam them out. In the case of the Mai and the Trunks, they also have on-play autos that your opponent gets to benefit from. But usually, in the case of the Mai, they don't really get the benefit. In the case of the Trunks, they could. Mai allows you to search your deck for the N-Archetype Vegito card. Spoiler, I do not run that card. And in the case of Trunks, he allows your opponent to draw 1, discard 1. So one key tip with Mai is that the shuffling effect is mandatory. 2 copies of the Vegeta negate. This guy right here is pretty cool. You give it to your opponent as long as you're on your backside or your Z leader to negate an attack. He is a 10k block. He is limit 1 on his counter skill though, so that's why I only play 2. Having more than 2 means that you're gonna see it a bunch more. And if you have a multiple in your hand, they don't really do anything. So you only really want to use this, towards the end of the game, stop a big attack, things like that. 2 copies of Goku. I know some people keep talking about the combo skill. I am not a big fan of the combo skill, except for on defense when I absolutely need it. Otherwise, he is a 1 cost, 25k double striker. That is good enough right there for me. Continuing on, we have 4 copies of the Evil Saiyan 1-drop. This is our preferred turn 1 play, especially when going first. You want to be able to stick something on turn 1 that gives you a card and that you could combo out of the way when your opponent attacks you, and that way you have the ability to go into your Z battle card easy. This guy tops 5s for a 6 or less Black Saiyan or a Fu, so he gets a lot of things similar to the Trunks. The Trunks grabs almost the entire deck. This guy grabs almost the entire deck, and whatever he doesn't get, he gets, and whatever he doesn't get, he gets. 3 copies of the 6-drop Cumber. Some people like this at 4, but 3 has been fine for me since, again, you have so much searching and so much drawing. You're going to see these cards. This card right here cannot be played unless your opponent has 2 or more energies. So going first, you don't get to play him until turn 3. Going second, you get to play him as soon as turn 2. He is able to give a battle card Servant on play. That then allows you to use your food to Overlord one of their battle cards. As far as food goes, we got our Z battle card and we got this guy right here. 6 rounds into my 10 rounds later, I have not ran into any problems running this guy. This guy has been good the entire time. I have taken, random 3 or less, including Z battle cards with this guy. And then you could swing 20k crit with him. And there's a significant difference in the Overlord between him and the Z battle card. His Overlord is once per turn. So if you do make multiples of this guy throughout the course of the game, you could then use them individually, unlike the Z battle card. The 8-drop, Big Cumber. This card right here is pretty foul. So you play it, you could give any number of your opponent's battle card servant, and you can either choose to give them double strike dual attack or triple strike. Most people will tell you the double strike dual attack is better. It all depends on what the situation you're in is. If they're at 3 life and you want to end it right there and giving them 2 cards to restand will cause you not to be able to get through the last attack, give them triple strike, swing, see if you can get there. Otherwise, most people are right, you do want to do the double strike dual attack. 30k, again, interacts well with the Z leader because you can give those guys servant, swing with the Z leader, and combo those guys. And then of course you could overlord their cards and do things. Now there's a few things also you need to clarify with Overlord. Overlord does not work on Z battle cards, and Overlord I don't believe works on ultimates. So this is all the main archetype I play. There's also Unison. The Unison is fine. I'm just not a big fan of running the Unison myself, but the Unison is able to give, you know, the Cumber servant or various other 6 or less cards servant. And then it also has the ability to take an opponent's card, I believe. It's pretty cool. Instead, what I went with was bolstering the fact that he's a Black Saiyan leader. So right now I'm playing 3 copies of Son Goku True Fighting Spirit. This card right here is a menace. People kind of gave up on it because it wasn't a Black Saiyan leader that was really that popping. And also they changed him to be unique, when before you used to be able to stack multiple of these things and force your opponent's hand every time they countered a card. But he's still good. He also allows you to manipulate your life. As I mentioned, getting to the Z leader is fairly important. So getting from 6 to 5 or from 4 to 3 will be able to help you out there. One called 15k, not to sneeze at. I play 1 copy of the Vegeta True Fighting Spirit and I side another. Main reason is that this guy punishes untapping of energy, doesn't matter what turn it is. And when they do that, they warp a card from their hand. He is not unique. So you could actually have 2 of these on the table. If you're able to stick 2 of these on the table against something like, say, Golden Frieza, it then neglects any advantage they have from doing their shenanigans with their untaps. 2 copies of 1-drop Goku. This guy right here is my second preferred turn 1 play. I wanted to have something I could play that would give me some type of advantage that I didn't have an issue comboing away. Then we have 4 copies of Vegeta. So Vegeta, of course, is Vegeta. He is searchable by your Trunks and your Evil Saiyan. The N archetype super combo is great. I do co-sign it if you're not gonna run this engine, but I run 1 copy of Thwarting to benefit from this engine, and I also run 1 copy of the 8-drop on my side to deal with a local matchup in Hatchiak. Also, the 8-drop is good against Trunks Vegeta, assuming that you could set it up. And the easiest way to set it up is give them a card, proc all their abilities, and then play the 8-drop for 4, get rid of a bunch of their cards in hand, and swing 3 times. Utility, we have 2 copies of Gohan Rare. So this card right here, I guess, is somewhat debated. I always thought it was a no-brainer, but the main thing is that when you're going second on defense, this card is amazing, especially if you're going against the red decks. So if you're going second on defense and they go into Dread or go into whatever, a lot of times they like to swing with their leader or the 15k first. If they do that, you get to punish them. So if they go 15k first, you get to combo, probably still take the hit, you Z-charge, pay black, get rid of Dread. Same thing, they swing on you and they try to do their pseudo-arrival with the 4-drop Vegeta with the critical and all that stuff. You get to combo this, you're probably going to still take the hit, you pay black, you warp the card. Then once it's in your Z energy, you're going to be able to, again, this is great defensively going second, you're then going to be able to put into the drop using either your Z food battle card, or if it's later in the game, you can put it into the drop using Majin Buu, being able to pay for it and then also use it to warp a card, or not warp, but absorb a card on their board. And then it gets to chill in your drop area or your warp to be able to use it as the gate later on. As I mentioned, I like using this negate late game. So you have access to this negate as well as this negate to be able to get you through the later turns. Smoke Dragon. So this is such a versatile card that I just decided to main deck it. There's a lot of Trunks Vegeta in my area, so having something that just removes barrier is great. There's also still a decent amount of Unisons played in my area. So, you know, Gamma, the red Unisons for the, you know, Sin and SS4. There's green players that are still playing 2-cost Unisons or less. So you play this, you get rid of it. The other reason why I like this card is that Overwhelming is somewhat difficult in the deck, at least reliably. So the ability to just play this, to mill 3 cards, draw 2, you could most likely set up a drop area situation where you could overwhelm and then be able to combo it off later or whatnot, however you see fit. 2 copies of Black Mass Sand. Card is kind of nuts. So it's a bean, but it's not really a bean because it doesn't have negative energy cost. But the main thing is that you make a 25k for 1 energy on your opponent's turn to give you a leader plus 5k. Or if you really need to remove something, you could pay black, play it on your turn as activate battle, and warp a card 6 or less on their side of the table. What I like to do is if I have 2 of these in hand, is play one on my opponent's turn and then play one on my turn. And now you have these 1 cost 25ks, which is again a lot of pressure on your opponent's life total. Now we're gonna go into the overwhelms of choice. Secret ID, of course, is great. It gets rid of the wider boards, the more annoying boards. Granted, you have a lot of removal, but the ability to get rid of a Z battle cards that you might not want to deal with, or tokens, because again, you have to be able to pay the cost to put the card on the bottom, so you can't overlord tokens. And then we have D-Bro. D-Bro is the catch-all to everything that he doesn't hit. He also hits, mostly everything he hits, but he only hits one thing. The reason why I like this card though is that if you do choose to overrun with this as your 1 overrun, you can always pay 2 to play it from the warp later on to be able to outgrind people. I do have the Vegeta. The Vegeta is a great card, but we're not playing the 6-drop Goku to be able to loop and play and do all kinds of shenanigans. So the way that you get the advantage is by using D-Bro. SCR, Evil Saiyan. So this guy right here closes out games, and that's one of the things I felt the deck had a little bit of an issue on, depending on what the matchup was. Some decks are able to defend themselves really well in this format. So being able to take this and just seal the game shut is really great. This also allows you to get rid of a barrier card. So for instance, if your opponent's at 3 energy, you went second, they stuck a slug on you, this guy becomes pretty useless. So you pay double black, you get rid of the slug, you get to look at their life, take away a negate or something. Extra cards, 2 copies of Super Kamehameha, 2 copies of our token negate supporting the Dark Empire, and then 1 copy of a Kraken Space Time. So Kraken Space Time allows you to give 15k and double strike to your leader. So that is the main deck. We already looked at the Z deck. We already talked about the leader. Again, link down below in the description. I thank you guys again for listening to me drone about this. And this is VG Time signing out.